Hey, AP students. I'm going to work through a speech, and hopefully the recording goes okay. And we're going to see kind of what I notice and how I do my analysis. I'll be switching back and forth between the speech and the same organizer that you're going to be potentially using for your essay. And yeah, hopefully this is helpful for you. So the speech I chose actually says Ursula K. Le Guin up here, but it's not. It's Oprah Winfrey. This is her acceptance speech for the Golden Globes. I guess that was last year. And I have read the speech before, but it's been a while, and I've never analyzed it in detail for the kind of rhetorical techniques or what her purpose is. I know that it had something to do with the Me Too movement, so I'm expecting something around women's rights and representation in the entertainment industry, but that's about the best guess I have. So that's probably about as much as you would get from reading the little introductory paragraph for your essay. So I'm going to read through, just kind of comment as I go. I might be writing some annotations or I might just say them, and we'll see how this goes. So in 1964, I was a little girl sitting on the linoleum floor of my mother's house in Milwaukee watching Anne Bancroft present the Oscar for Best Actor at the 36 Academy Awards. All right, so already we've got a anecdote, a personal story about her girl watching grown woman. So, we'll see if this anecdote strategy goes anywhere. It could be one of my body paragraphs. She opened the envelope and said 5 words that literally made history. The winner is Sidney Poitier. And if you don't know, Sidney Poitier is one of the greatest African American actors of all time. And yeah, him winning an Oscar was a big shock. Up to the stage came the most elegant man I had ever seen. I remember his tie was white, and of course his skin was black. And I'd never seen a black man being celebrated like that. All right, so maybe it's not just women. Maybe there's also a racial element to her purpose here. We'll see. And I've tried many, many, many times to explain what a moment like that means to a little girl, a kid watching from the cheap seats as my mom came through the door, bone tired from cleaning other people's houses. So we've got kind of a contrast here between the rich and famous at the Oscars and a hard-working mother. Okay. But all I can do is quote and say that the explanation in Sidney's performance in Lilies of the Field. Amen, 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 amen. In 1982, Sidney received the Cecil B. DeMille Award right here at the Golden Globes, and it is not lost on me that at this moment there are some little girls watching as I become the first black woman to be given the same award. All right, so with all this being said, same award. So maybe all of this was context and background and highlighting how few African Americans have been honored. Yeah, I'm not sure yet. We shall see. It is an honor, and it is a privilege to share this evening with all of them, and also with the incredible men and women who've inspired me, who've challenged me, who've sustained me, and made my journey to this stage possible. I'm just going to note kind of in a language thing, we've got inspired, challenged, sustained. So if I want to kind of like look at something more detailed and language oriented, kind of this list of verbs she's using. So share the stage, I guess she's saying, with the other award winners. So kind of paying respect to those who came before. I still feel like we haven't really gotten to the main purpose of the speech here. Dennis Swanson, who took a chance on me for AM Chicago. Quincy Jones, who saw me on that show and said to Steven Spielberg, yes, she is Sophia in The Color Purple. That's a famous movie that she was in, that she was fabulous in. Gail, who's been the definition of what a friend is, and Stedman, who's been my rock. That's her husband, if you don't know. Just a name. I think it's supposed to be just to name a few. I'd like to thank the Hollywood Foreign Press Association because we all know that the press is under siege these days. All right, so this seems like a pretty standard award thank you list. So, I'm not sure if that's going to come into like her main purpose. I might not discuss that at all. But we also know that it is the insatiable dedication to uncovering the absolute truth that keeps us from turning a blind eye to corruption and injustice. Whoa. I feel like there's a big switch here to probably her main purpose, which seems to be something about, we also know it's the insatiable dedication, uncover truth and corruption. So she seems to be talking, and again, I notice there's some Me Too movement stuff in here, so that's kind of makes sense. To tyrants and victims and secrets and lies. It's going along with the whole turning a blind eye thing that she was just saying. And again, some nice, strong language. If I want to focus on it, which I might. I want to say that I value the press more than ever before as we try to navigate these complicated times. And I guess we do kind of have her mentioning the press is under siege up here. So maybe she did kind of start with her thing a little bit earlier. Which brings me to this. What I know for sure is that speaking your truth is the most powerful tool we all have. That right there might be her message or her theme, so let's bold it. And I'm especially proud and inspired by all the women who have felt strong enough and empowered enough to speak up and share their personal stories. Okay, so yeah, I mean, Me Too movement, that was a lot of women sharing stories that had not come out before about men abusing and taking advantage of them, mostly men. Each of us in this room are celebrated because of the stories that we tell. And this year we became the story. Ooh, this year we became the story. Sorry, I'm just kind of bolding the quotes I like. But it's not just a story affecting the entertainment industry. It's one that transcends any culture, geography, race. Okay, so if this whole paragraph equals kind of entertainment industry focus, we all tell stories, and women's stories are finally coming out. And by the way, sorry you're hearing my typing. We kind of get this expansion transition here. So it's all industries, all women, which again might go to kind of the heart of her argument. So I want tonight to express gratitude to all the women who have endured years of abuse and assault because they, like my mother, throws in a little personal thing again, had children to feed and bills to pay and dreams to pursue. Ooh, I like that. It's a nice little list, again, just looking at kind of more small language things. List culminating in dreams. So it's like from the concrete to the hopeful and inspirational. These women weren't just like workers, they were also dreamers. They're the women whose names we'll never know. They are domestic workers and farm workers. They are working in factories and they work in restaurants. And they're academia and engineering and medicine and science. They're part of the world of tech and politics and business. There are athletes in our Olympics and there are soldiers in the military. All right, awesome. So there's a nice, really straightforward strategy here. A list of varied women's roles / jobs / positions to show that all women have these stories, and also maybe highlight how impressive women are, right? Because, I mean, she's really showing like a nice gamut here. We got soldiers, like really this violent, you know, like demanding thing that maybe women are only recently allowed into. We've got the strongest women in the world in the Olympics. We've got, looks like this one was really focused on kind of the educated ones. And then here we've got like the working class. And then like tech and politics and business, the movers and shakers. So she really, whoa. She really kind of covered everybody, right? Like basic working class, highly educated, controllers of the world, and the strongest women. So that'll be a nice thing to kind of discuss in a paragraph all by itself. And there's someone else, Reese Taylor, a name I know and I think you should know too. All right, so now we're getting to, it looks like transition. Whoa. Stop. Transition from nameless women, because she said in that last paragraph they were in the nameless, to one specific example. Another anecdote, like her and her mother earlier. Reese Taylor was a young wife and a mother. She was just walking home from a church service when she was abducted by 6 armed white men, raped and left blindfolded by the side of the road coming home from church. They threatened to kill her if she ever told anyone, but her story was reported to the NAACP, where a young worker by the name of Rosa Parks became the lead investigator on her case, and together they sought justice. But justice wasn't an option in the era of Jim Crow. The men who tried to destroy her were never persecuted. I'm sure that is prosecuted. Reese Taylor died 10 days... Oh my gosh. This is an emotional thing. She lived as we all have lived, too many years in a culture broken by brutally powerful men. What a great quote. I mean, gosh, how powerful. And for too long, women have not been heard or believed if they dared to speak their truth to the power of those men. But their time is up. Their time is up. Their time is up. All right, again, we got some nice repetition if we're going for a more specific language device. And yeah, this whole one is, I guess, kind of, you could say, a contrasting anecdote. The injustice of previous eras contrasted with the new chance for justice in the Me Too era. So we've got kind of how things used to be and how they are now becoming, especially exemplified by this repetition of their time is up, their time is up. And I just hope that Reese Taylor died knowing that her truth, like the truth of so many other women who were tormented those years, and even now tormented, goes marching on. It was somewhere in Rosa Parks' heart almost 11 years later when she made the decision to stay seated on that bus in Montgomery. And it's here with every woman who chooses to stay, me too. And every man who chooses to listen. Ooh, let's bold that. Because she is kind of reaching across the aisle, expanding the audience she is discussing. It wasn't just women. What to say about this? Actually, kind of like chronologically, if we want to talk about organizations, he chronologically moves forward through Rosa Parks and modern women. Okay. In my career, what I've always tried my best to do, whether on television or through films, is say something about how men and women really behave, to say how we experience shame, how we love and how we rage, how we fail, how we retreat, persevere, and how we overcome. Now, there's a great quote. And don't forget, I don't want you... Yes, it's an aphora. Yes, we've got the howie. But don't discuss it as an aphora. Discuss it here. Let's see. List of powerful verbs of women's varied experiences, negative and positive. Starting negative, because look, we've got rage and shame and fail and retreat, but ending with persevere and overcome. So those would really like kind of show, negative to positive. Women are never down. They'll always accomplish what they set out for. And I've interviewed and portrayed people who've withstood some of the ugliest things life can throw at you, but the one quality all of them seem to share is an ability to maintain hope for a brighter morning, even during our darkest nights. Okay, we got a nice little kind of symbolic sort of metaphor here. Metaphorical contrast, day and night. So this whole section kind of says women will overcome, a new day will dawn, which I guess kind of goes with what we had here, like the time is up. So I want all the girls watching here and now to know that a new day... Oh, there we go. I mean, shoot, this is like almost a straight up message to the audience. So she had mentioned this earlier, but we should probably say the girls seem to be her main audience, just like she was a girl watching. She alluded to that right at the beginning. And new day equals maybe her message or something. Let's see. And when that new day finally dawns, it will be because of a lot of magnificent women, many of whom are right here in this room tonight, and some pretty phenomenal men. So just a compliment, fighting hard to make sure they become the leaders who take us to the time when nobody ever has to say, me too again. Thank you. All right, nice little ending. I'm not sure what to say about it. All right, so that's like my read. I've bolded some things. I mean, it's kind of a mishmash. Let's use the organizer to make it a little bit more clear. All right, so author's claim, argument. I would say something along the lines of the hard work of women and some men has created a new day when justice is possible for persecuted and abused women. Okay, so I think like that new day, that new horizon. And I'll get to the right side in a second. What is the tone of the piece? It's mostly, I would think, celebratory in a way, but also serious and contemplative. I don't know. I mean, I'm probably not going to talk about the tone too much. Okay, purpose to motivate, I would say, right? Because if we're saying like it's the young girls and them motivated to know that they can accomplish and they can achieve. So I would say to motivate is probably the main one. Author's intended audience. It is the Golden Globe audience but mainly focused on young girls watching, because she is like complimenting the Golden Globe audience on the good things they've done, but also young girls watching who might be inspired. Okay. How did the writer arrange his or her ideas? All right, let's look back for that. Okay, so we start out with the history, how she was inspired by this thing. We get to the thank yous, and then we go to kind of how we have to fight for truth, how we have to fight for justice. She thanks a variety of women. She focuses on one woman in particular and how times have changed. So it's like a little bit chronological and a little bit, oops, that's not for you, or it is for you. So it kind of goes from particular to general to particular, because like it starts with her personal story, then goes to like kind of all women, and then gets back to specific people. It's like somewhat chronological in parts. And yeah, it kind of goes from broad to specific. So it does a lot of these, which means I probably won't discuss any of them because it's not like one clear one. Diction is often inspirational. We have some like metaphors for new days and such. And let's see. I mean, definitely some strong pathos appeals. Remember, we want to say what kind of things they did. Telling emotional stories of persecuted women and also her own inspiration. And I think she gets some ethos by sharing her story, by reaching out to men and women. Because remember, part of ethos is like showing your credibility and that you care about the whole audience. And let's see, anything else? What she did for ethos. And I guess just expressing appreciation for her audience. And then logos, I guess you could say a little bit like in the progression of justice, comparing to the past. It's probably her weakest one, so I probably won't focus on that. And the other important rhetorical features, I mean, I said a lot of them, but to kind of collect them here, well, I mean, I don't know if I would collect them here even. So, yeah, I mean, you can fill this thing out more. It's as much as you want to, but I mean, my thoughts are pretty clear. And I don't want this video to be silly long. Now, this is a longer speech than you'll be analyzing and than you would analyze for the AP test. But let's see. How would I kind of structure this? All right, so if P1 member should generally identify the rhetorical situation. So we've got Oprah speaking to not only Golden Globes, but also all young girls, motivating them to believe in themselves and justice and to change the world, and overall communicating the message that a new day is here for justice, and women will not suffer the cruelties of men any longer. Now, how would I lead into that creatively? I'm just thinking like I might write something like, I don't even know. I guess I can kind of just lead into the issue in general. For decades, women have suffered in silence, facing abuse and neglect, and even rape and murder by men. These men might have been strangers or even their own cherished loved ones. Oprah Winfrey is one of these women, but when she gave her speech at the Golden Globes, she wanted to emphasize the message that a new day has dawned and that persecution is over because women now have a voice and a platform to get the justice they deserve. And I mean, I don't know, I could go more than that. Now, I want to have like main things I want to focus on. So if I do it chronologically, again, this is more than I would do. So let's focus on like the best things. So I wouldn't focus on that. So I think I'm going to focus on these like kind of middle paragraphs. So my first paragraph could focus on, so P2 is where she emphasizes the need for uncovering truth and earning justice, and with a focus on the entertainment industry. And how does that relate to her overall message that a new day is here and that women can get justice now? I mean, it kind of is their message, right? So we have an obligation to seek justice, and finally that's happening, I guess. And if I wanted to throw in, I always like to throw in at least one language device. Which one did I like the best here? Let me get rid of that big thing because that's not helping me much. So let's see. I guess like this little to tyrants and victims. And yeah, so like I might quote that one. I could just like throw it in there. And I might quote, I'm never sure is speaking. Your truth is the most powerful tool we have. So those would probably be my two quotes. And I would emphasize something about like kind of the diction in here. Just the negative things that we cannot turn a blind eye to, that we have an obligation to fight against. And the speaking your truth thing I can relate to later. Okay, P3. And my font got changed there. So P3, go into this one. This is a really nice, easy one to analyze. So she follows up her emphasis on the need to uncover justice by saying, let's see, by identifying the scope of the problem, the huge number of women in all sectors that face this abuse. So she says, like, we have this, we have to confront abuse. Everyone faces it. And then we'll get into, like, and now the time is up and we have the chance to change it. So that'll kind of be, I mean, here, I'll go ahead and plan that now. So P4. But justice is finally possible after years of effort. And the truth can finally be heard. So we need the truth. Everyone has faced abuse, but now justice is possible. I think that's a pretty good kind of like arc to my arguments. So let's see. I like this one. I had a nice like little analysis for that. So I'll certainly throw that one into P3. And then I won't use the whole quote, but this whole section that's kind of like talking about how they're all the women in that long list. That'll be an easy way to kind of analyze that one. And then for P4, let's see. So I'll say the Reese Taylor anecdote. I'll have to quote the entire thing. And then I had some quotes at the bottom. Certainly get the repetition of their time is up. Their time is up. What else do I want to bring in here? I'm going to save this because I think that'll be a nice little part of sophistication, kind of broadening the audience. And then the experiences women have lived with. And then let's get this last quote to kind of bring home the message. And then what kind of conclusion would I have? I mean, again, it's okay to have a pretty basic conclusion for analysis, so let's not worry about that. Now, I do want to look at how I can throw some sophistication in here. Things she might not have thought about, kind of tensions. So let's see. In the first part, because we don't want to just do it like in the end or something. Let's see. I mean, there's one focused on. So I guess like the press thing, that could be my sophistication in paragraph 2. So discuss briefly her touching on the press, which I'll just try to pull it out here, is probably a response to perceived attacks on the press by Donald Trump and other major figures like him. That's what I would guess she was going for. And that kind of gives a little bit more rhetorical situation in that, so that's good for sophistication. Okay, and then going down in here, let's see, this was focused on, all right, the children to feed. Oh, for this one, I mean, my analysis could gain some sophistication in the stuff I already talked about. Focus on the kind of categorization or the categories of the women she thanks. And what we say, it went from laborers to educators to the powerful, like politicians, to the physically strong. And just do like a little analysis on how she's covering every possible woman. That should get my sophistication in there. And then for P4, let's see. Oh, I said I was going to do something there, right? I saved a quote. Oh, and yeah, I'll go ahead and bring in sophistication here. Will be how she broadens the audience, gives men something to be proud of as well, and inspires them to do more. That should definitely help me out. All right, so that's a pretty good plan. Probably more than I need, in all honesty. But yeah, and then I would just do a fairly basic conclusion. The only thing I might add in for a little bit of sophistication, but again, it's analysis, you don't need to do this. I might mention the potential kind of falling back of the Me Too movement. How some people feel like it's been forgotten some. I mean, certainly COVID-19 and like that crisis has made it feel that way, I think, for some. But even before that, like people felt like it was being co-opted by other groups, or even like, was not as much of a focus anymore. So there you go. That'd be my essay. Sorry that was so long. I'm going to see in a second when I stop the recording how long it was. But I hope this kind of thing is helpful. Feel free to leave me comments or anything. And thanks, everybody.